Hi, I'm Laura.
And I'm Joe.
And this is Crime Divers.
Hello everybody, welcome to today's episode.
Hello.
And today it is a Laura-sode.
I don't know why.
Did you just chime in there?
I just decided to join you in that one.
Okay, so Laura,
Yes,
where in the world are we?
we are in America.
Okay, and what is the name of your case?
It is called Death in the Bay.
Okay, so that kind of gives a little bit away.
Yes, I'll be honest, this one is, I believe it's quite a sort of well-known case out there, so you probably might have heard about it. I mean, I personally had heard of it, but I didn't really know the ins and outs of it.
Have I heard of it?
I think you have heard of it because I've heard you mention it before.
Uh-huh.
So
So who are we talking about?
it's about a woman called Laci Denise Rocha, which is actually, that's her maiden name. But
So it'll be Laci Peterson.
Laci Peterson,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've heard the story.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe
But-
not everybody's heard it. And I hadn't really heard of. I had heard of sort of the basis of what happened, but you know, as with a lot of cases, I mean, it's all very well known what happened.
The main bits.
But then to actually dive into it and you know, find out, you know, the full story, then I thought it was quite interesting. And I thought, you know what, maybe not everybody's heard it, and if they have, maybe they like to hear it again.
Yeah, well, everybody knows by now I have a bad memory. So
Yes, so maybe you've forgotten all about it too.
I know the basics, and as I said, I mean, I know kind of sort of what happened. I know who got convicted and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
I have listened to podcasts on it before, but I don't really remember.
There's a surprise. So it's probably quite new to you today. But, you know, for anybody that hasn't heard it, you know, they'll this will be hopefully a good one for you. And anybody that has heard it, well, you know, here's my take on it.
Okay, so shall we dive in?
Let's dive in. So Laci Denise Rocha was born on the 4th of May 1975. She was born to Sharon and Dennis Robert Rocha. They had met at high school and they now owned a dairy farm in California. Sharon had apparently named Laci after a pretty girl she'd met in high school.
Ah,
So that was her.
Laci's a nice name though.
Yeah, I like that. Laci had an older brother, Brent, and she worked on the farm, you know, from a young age with her mum and dad, helping out, as you do. I think most people that are brought up on farms do end up helping, don't they? She also enjoyed gardening with her mum as well. So Sharon and Dennis did actually divorce when Laci and her brother were quite young. Sharon and the kids, they actually moved to a place called Modesto. The children did visit their dad at the dairy farm, so he stayed at the farm.
Right.
And they visited them at the weekend, so they still saw their dad, which was fine. Sharon did eventually marry another man called Ron Gransky, and he helped raise Laci and Brent. So Laci, she was a cheerleader in junior high and high school. She attended uni and she majored in horticulture, which kind of, I think, came from her sort of love of helping her mum with the garden and stuff.
Yeah, just gonna say that.
Yeah. So while at uni, Laci, she would sometimes visit a friend who worked at a restaurant called the Pacific Cafe, and there she met her friend's co-worker, a man named Scott Peterson, and that was in mid-1994. Laci made the first move and sent Scott her phone number. Immediately after meeting Scott, she told her mum that she'd met the man that she was going to marry, so it was almost like love it. I think it was like love at first sight for her. She obviously was besotted with him. So Scott later called Laci and they began dating. Their first date was a deep-sea fishing trip, but Laci sadly got seasick.
Aww.
And I was like, so would I, because I'm not good on the sea. I feel sick when I'm in the water. I went on a trip. I went to Gozo, island off of Malta a few years ago for a wedding. And after the wedding, like we'd obviously been there for a couple of days afterwards, so we went on this like boat trip thing, and it was like an organised thing. So at some point, obviously I did feel sick, but then at some point, another boat came out to give us like our food and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So me and there was another girl that was there, we were both feeling quite sick, so we actually got them to take us back to shore, because I was like, yeah, I can't deal with this. But it was just too choppy. The water was just too choppy. I just didn't like it. So sadly I did not enjoy that trip. So
I didn't mind
feel
a
for
boat
Laci
trip.
in that point, because I would have been the same. So don't ever take me out on a boat trip.
Okay, noted. Wasn't planning on it, but okay.
No, thank you. So as their relationship developed and grew more serious, Scott put aside his dreams of becoming a professional golfer so that he could focus on a business path instead. The couple had been together for about 2 years when they eventually decided to move in together. While Scott, because he was at uni as well, while Scott was finishing his senior year at uni, it is thought that Scott began having an affair.
Oh.
However, we don't actually know any details or a name about the woman that he had this initial affair with.
And is it confirmed, or is it just a...
It just said, well, from the research that I thought it was thought, I mean, we'll go on to find out he did actually have another affair, which is a bit more significant.
Right.
But this affair, we don't know. Well, I couldn't find anything about. I mean, there was just nothing to say anything about it. So after Laci graduated, the couple did actually get married. They got married on the 9th of August 1997. Scott then graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in agricultural business in June 1998. So after their graduations, they opened a sports bar called The Shack. Business was initially slow, but it did eventually start to improve. But then they decided to sell The Shack in 2000. And that's when they moved back to Laci's hometown of Modesto to start a family.
Right.
So in October 2000, they bought a 3-bedroom bungalow for $177,000. So at this point, Laci took a job as a substitute teacher, and Scott got a job with Trade Corp USA, which was a newly founded subsidiary of a subsidiary, can't say the word, of a European fertilizer company. Scott earned a salary of about $5,000 before tax. So, you know, they were doing quite well.
Yeah.
They had a couple of good jobs and they were settling down in their new place. So Laci, you know, she was overjoyed when she found out that she was pregnant in 2002. So, you know, that was what they wanted to do. They wanted to start a family and stuff. So they were overjoyed, you know, they were pregnant. So her due date was the 10th of February 2003. I think they must have found out that they were having a boy, as they had planned to name their unborn son Connor, so they'd obviously come up with a name already, so they must have found out that they were having, well, obviously, because otherwise she wouldn't have chose that. So
that is Connor is a Scottish name, isn't it?
I don't know. Is it?
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe it's not.
I don't know. I just, for some reason, I thought it was.
I don't know.
Is that not the guy's name in Highlander?
I've never watched Highlander, so
I watched... Oh, never mind.
I've never watched it. So
I think, for some reason, I've got it in my head that it's a Scottish name. It's probably not. I've no idea.
It's quite a common boy's name. I know that much, but yeah. So anyway, that's what they decided to call him. So in November 2002, when Laci was 7 months pregnant, Scott was introduced to a woman called Amber Frey. Scott had told Amber that he was single, and they began a relationship, which was Scott's second affair.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
That's
so
Scott.
He's, you know, as much as he sounded like a nice guy at the start, he's obviously not if he's having affairs and things like
Telling
that.
somebody that you're single is not fair on either woman.
Well, exactly, because I mean, you know, this Amber, you know, if that's what she's been told and she begins a relationship, you know, you can't blame her at all.
Exactly. She's not at fault
Exactly.
if she thinks the guy's single.
Exactly, so I think that's awful. So on the 23rd of December in 2002, at about 5:45 at night, Laci and Scott went to Laci's half-sister Amy's work, which was a salon. So that must have been her, like a dad must have had another daughter, I think, called Amy. Amy cut Scott's hair, as she did every month. And as they spoke, Scott offered to pick up a fruit basket that Amy had ordered for her grandfather for Christmas, as he was playing golf at the course nearby. Laci spoke to her mum on the phone at around 8:30 p.m. So, you know, it just seemed like a normal day, nothing out of the ordinary. Clearly that's, you know, Scott obviously went regularly to get his hair cut by Amy. So nothing out of the ordinary. So on the 24th of December, Scott actually reported Laci missing.
Okay.
So on Christmas Eve, he reports his wife missing.
Wow.
So when the police turn up, they do routine questioning, you know, as you would, you know, when did Scott last see his wife, you know, what she'd been up to, that sort of thing that day. And he said that he last saw her at 9:30 that morning when he left to go fishing at the Berkeley Marina. He said Laci was watching a cooking show on TV, preparing to mop the floors, bake cookies, and would walk the family dog to a nearby park. At the time of her disappearance, Laci was 8.5 months pregnant, so in my opinion, she'd be doing well to manage all that. Like what he's just said that she's going to do, At 8.5 months pregnant.
That's a lot.
That's a lot to do. I'm not saying that she couldn't do it,
Yeah.
but I find that, you know, I remember personally being, you know, when I was 8.5 months pregnant, you know, I had just finished up work, I think, and I was like, you know, I was that big and
That's when you-
tired.
yeah.
And I just, you know, I couldn't be bothered. I think I didn't do a lot in the weeks leading up to actually having my daughter. I just...
Yeah. But then everybody's
As I
different.
said, I mean, I'm not saying that she couldn't do it,
Some
but...
people like work right up
well, yeah,
to...
no, I mean, that's absolutely true, so I'm not sure she couldn't, but it just seems like, you know, it could be a lot for her to
Right,
manage.
yeah.
So later that morning, a woman called Karen Service, who's a neighbour, she stated that around 10:30, she actually found the Petersons' dog, which was a golden retriever named Mackenzie, alone outside the home. She returned him to the back garden, so he must have actually been out with the property.
Right.
So she put him back in the back garden. And then another neighbour named Mike Chiviata, I think that's how you pronounce it, said that he saw Mackenzie, the dog, about 10:45, as he was actually playing catch with his own dog, so he must have been out there seen that. Scott said he'd returned home that afternoon to find the house empty. Scott said he found Mackenzie in the back garden. But Laci's 1996 Land Rover Discovery was in the driveway, so her car was still there. So again, to me, that because she was 8.5 months pregnant, I think, well, you know, she might, if she was out, you know, would she have been walking that far? Because I mean, it's
Yeah,
not
you can't
easy.
walk very fast.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy, especially if the dog was at home. So it wasn't like she was walking the dog. You know, like where would she? I mean, obviously we don't know. I don't know what was around their house or what was nearby or whatever. But I just think at 8.5 months pregnant, I mean, I was driving the car anywhere I could. You know, wherever I was going, even at the shop, like 5 minutes on the road. I think I probably would have been driving along just because I could be bothered to walk that far because it's, you know, it's hard going at 8 months pregnant. I would say, yeah. So to me, that would have rang alarm bells, but no. So apparently once he returned home, he then showered and he washed his clothes because he'd said he got them wet from fishing.
Okay.
So again, I was like, okay, well, that's... I mean, my husband, personally, if he come home from something like that, he would put his... Yes, he would get changed and maybe have a shower, but I certainly wouldn't go wash his clothes. He would put them there for me too.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say that. My husband would just put them in the washing basket, which he frequently misses because he just throws the clothes and they end up on the floor.
So I always think, because I mean, I totally... this is not quite the same, a sort of comparison, but I remember vaguely when my husband, like, he was meant to have stopped smoking, but he was still sneakily having cigarettes.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, he would come home from at work, whatever,
and wash his clothes.
and wash his clothes and go in the shower, and it was always because he was trying to hide the smoke smell. So to me, if you're washing your clothes, you're hiding something.
Definitely. I would be very suspicious if my husband started doing that.
Exactly. But I don't know. Anyway. So according to, because obviously, you know, the press and stuff had started to get wind of all this sort of thing. So according to ABC News, Scott had reported Laci missing, like I told you. However, the New York Post said that Scott had actually called his mother-in-law first, and half an hour later it was actually Laci's stepfather who called the police. But I don't actually know. There's obviously conflicting reports there, so I don't actually know who did.
Right.
There's obviously a difference of a report there. So somebody obviously did, but I'm not sure whether it was Scott or...
But he still raised the alarm, really, then.
because he's obviously...
He's either reported her missing or he's phoned Laci's mum.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So he's raised the alarm.
Yeah, he has done that, yeah. So after police arrived at the Petersons, Laci's keys, purse and sunglasses were found in her handbag in a closet.
Oh.
So
she wouldn't have left.
Well, again, that's my thinking. You know, your car's on the drive. You've not got your keys, your purse. I don't know, sunglasses. I mean, I suppose maybe living down there is probably quite sunny quite often. So yeah, whatever. But and they were found in a closet. So I thought that was a bit strange. You know, especially considering we've been 8.5 months pregnant. She wouldn't want to be without anything in case anything happened.
Of course.
So the dining room table that had been set for a family dinner the following night, because obviously this was Christmas Eve, remember? So it had been Christmas the next night. So the dining room table had been set for a family dinner. One detective found a phone book on the kitchen counter, which was opened at a full-page ad for a defence lawyer. So that was like another alarm bell to the police detective. You know, why would it be open at a defence lawyer?
Yeah.
And obviously we don't know who had put that there, whether that been Scott or maybe that had been Laci. We don't actually know. It was just strange.
And there'd be alarm bells if you need a lawyer, then
exactly. Why do you need a lawyer? But Scott himself was reported to be like completely calm about the whole situation. Like me, I think I would be like really panicked and stuff. I mean, I know everybody deals with this situation is different.
Yeah.
But especially if you're, your wife, she's 8.5 months pregnant, she's gone missing, no car, she's not taking her stuff, and you're quite calm.
You'd think you'd be frantic.
Yeah.
Because you'd be worried not only for your wife, you'd be worried about your unborn baby as well.
Of course. So I don't know how you could be calm in that situation, but he apparently was calm.
Mm-hmm.
Police detectives did suspect Scott when they first met him, because as I was just saying, he was just too calm and cool. He wasn't really on at the police. He wasn't like, asking what were they doing, like, what you doing to find her, that sort of stuff. And I'm not, cause obviously I put this bit in, I'm not entirely sure exactly when this happened, but at some point he did refuse a polygraph test as well.
Oh, okay.
So, there's suspicions there, because he wasn't, he just wasn't, because to me, I would do anything I could to...
Dodgy kettles.
Yeah, dodgy kettles.
I don't said that for ages.
Dodgy kettles.
Dodgy kettles.
So, of course, the Modesto police and firefighters, they carried out a search along a place called Dry Creek, the day after Laci's disappearance. There was helicopters, there was police on horses and bikes, there was canine units, and there was water rescue units. So there was a big search, to obviously find her. A total of 30 officers were involved, as well as loved ones and volunteers. There was flyers posted to try and raise awareness of her disappearance. The police officer had a press conference. And they said at the press conference that they did not believe that Laci had decided to leave without contacting her family, saying it was completely out of character for her. So they think something's, clearly happened to her. Which,
well, I think it'd be very unusual for somebody to be pregnant so far along and to do something like that.
Oh, yeah. I don't think that,
to voluntarily disappear when you're that far
exactly. So to me, that's
pregnancy.
again, alarm bells are ringing there, thinking, that something's clearly happened to her. There was a $25,000 reward was offered, which was later increased to $250,000, and then finally $500,000 for any information leading to Laci's safe return. Friends, family, and volunteers, they set up like a command centre to record developments and circulate information. There was over 1,500 volunteers signed up to help. And there was also a LaciPeterson.com website launched by the husband of one of our friends. So there was a big, massive search here. I mean, they were obviously, of course, very keen to find out what's happened to her, You'd be very, very worried. But sadly, nothing, initially nothing. They didn't find any trace of her, didn't find anything, nothing.
Wow.
She just had disappeared.
At Christmas as well.
I know it's hard any time of year, but Christmas always seems to get me more, I think,
It always seems worse at Christmas time.
I know, totally, but... Sadly, let's say for a good few months, there was just nothing. There was no information, nothing. So nearly 4 months on, so we're now in April 2003, a couple were walking their dog, and they came across the decomposing but well-preserved body of a late-term male fetus in a marshy area of the San Francisco Bay Shore.
I like how you just kept talking.
I know.
Like, no,
I know, I'm like,
don't tell me. I don't want to know.
I think you were expecting me to see the body of her there, weren't you?
No, I was just thinking a body. Like, I don't know. I was just, I was just thinking. No, you found something. I don't want to know what it is.
Yeah, but they found. Yeah, so it was the body of a late term male fetus.
So it was
not in.
Well, not. Yeah, it was. So Laci wasn't there.
No,
just the baby
at this point. Yeah.
Right.
It's a umbilical cord was still attached, appearing to have been torn, not cut or clamped like you would normally find after birth. Although the judge sealed the autopsy results, an anonymous Associated Press source revealed that 1.5 loops of nylon tape were found around the fetus's neck, and there was a significant cut on the fetus's body. So they obviously didn't reveal exactly the extent of how they'd found it, but it was obviously leaked to the press at some point. So I know it sounds a bit horrible. Unfortunately, it's not going to get any better.
Well, I wouldn't have thought so.
So only a day later, a passerby found the body of a recently pregnant woman. She was wearing beige pants and a maternity bra. She was washed up on the eastern rocky shoreline of the bay, 1 mile away from where the baby's body had been found. The corpse was really badly decomposed. It was almost unrecognisable as a human body.
Oh.
Sadly, the woman had been decapitated.
Oh, God.
And her limbs were missing, including most of her legs. So she'd been
No, that's
Yeah.
awful.
So basically, it was just her torso that had been found.
Oh.
Which, yeah, it's horrible. So on the 18th of April 2003, the results of DNA tests confirmed that the bodies were Laci and her unborn son, Connor.
That's horrible.
Which is just absolutely...
That's horrific.
Yeah. So both of them obviously had autopsies performed. Connor's skin wasn't decomposed at all. Though the right side of his body had been mutilated, the placenta and umbilical cord were not found with the body. Laci's cervix was intact. She had 2 cracked ribs. They don't know whether that was before or after her death, so they can't determine when that happened. But Laci's torso had been emptied of internal organs except for the uterus, which protected the fetus, explaining why Connor had a lower level of decomposition. I can't say the word.
So are we saying that he was like cut out of her?
I don't think. Well, I'll explain a bit more.
I'm just kind of confused as to.
Yeah, because I'm about to tell you basically. So the pathologist determined that the fetus had been, what he said was, expelled from Laci's decaying body. So it's almost like at some point it had just naturally came out. Yeah. So I think when she was killed, the baby was still in her tummy. Mm-hmm. But possibly at some point, I think at some point it's just...
So we're saying here that she did actually give birth?
But dead.
But
her body...
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's...
Her body actually still managed to give birth.
Yeah,
right.
It must have...
Because I'm thinking because I was thinking along the lines of somebody was cutting the baby out and...
No, I think it had naturally...
Right, okay.
After she had been killed...
Her body just naturally...
Yeah, which is why the baby's body wasn't decomposed like her body, because it had been protected in her for a period of time after she had died.
All right.
And I think it's...
How can that happen though?
I don't know. I mean, obviously it was... Because as I said, I mean, it had been expelled from the decaying body. The pathologist couldn't be certain whether it had been born dead or alive. So you don't even know if the baby was still
I thought you could tell whether a baby had been born dead or alive.
Well, what the pathologist did say was that there was no food in the baby's stomach, which, if there had been, that could have indicated a live birth, but he was still saying that he couldn't 100% determine.
Right.
So we don't... It probably is the fact that the baby wasn't alive, but he couldn't be sure.
Well, I really hope he wasn't. I know
that
sounds
horrible.
He
wasn't, yeah. I mean, I hope so.
I would hate to think of just a little baby suffering.
Mm-hmm,
like
exactly.
You know,
so I really hope for the baby sake that it wasn't alive. So sadly, the exact date and cause of Laci's death has never actually been determined. They don't know exactly when she died, and they don't know exactly how she died, which is pretty awful.
Yeah.
So after the discovery of the bodies, it was clear the police only had one person they wanted to talk to, and that was Scott Peterson.
Yeah.
That was their only person of interest at that point. They didn't want to speak to anybody else. So Scott was arrested on the 18th of April 2003 near a golf course. He said he was meeting his dad and brother for a round of golf, but his naturally dark brown hair had been dyed blonde, and his car was rammed with random items, including $15,000 in cash, 12 Viagra tablets, survival gear, camping equipment, several changes of clothes, 4 mobile phones, and 2 driving licenses. One was his and one was his brother's. Apparently Scott's dad had said that he'd used his brother's licence to get a resident discount at another golf club in San Diego, which is why he had 2.
But that, along with everything else,
I know,
seems like he was going to be doing a runner.
I think he was going to be on the run. And his dad had also said that apparently Scott had actually been living out of his car because of all the media attention.
So, to me, that sounds like his dad's sticking up for him and making excuses.
That's the impression I was getting. I was like, are you sticking up for this guy here? I mean, it did seem that way.
Because that's what it sounds like. It sounds like he's making up excuses for him, whereas you would think you would be like, well, if he's done it, then no, I'm not going to be.
Well, exactly.
I'm not going to make up excuses for a murderer.
I know, but no, but that's all his dad said. So
right.
The police, however, they saw that these items were an indication that he'd planned to flee to Mexico. So they were like having none of it. They were like, nah, like why would you have dyed your hair?
Yeah.
Why would you have?
Why would you go Viagra though?
Well, exactly.
It's a bit of a random
thing.
He's
been known to have affairs, so maybe he was expecting to meet somebody and maybe he's been having trouble. I don't know. But hey ho.
Yeah. Like, I would think, like, take the essentials.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought of that as an essential.
Well, me neither, but I don't know. So, Scott was charged with 2 felony counts of murder with premeditation and special circumstances. He pleaded not guilty.
Mm-hmm.
But there was only a handful of evidence that linked Scott. So the handful of evidence was that they'd had sniffer dogs. The sniffer dogs had picked up a scent at the marina where Scott claimed he was fishing on the day of Laci's disappearance. But there was a bit later on saying that the dogs were discredited a bit because apparently they had failed 2/3 of like a test that they should pass for being able to be sniffer dogs or whatever. So the defence was trying to say that they were unreliable, but these dogs had apparently picked up her scent at the marina. But so that was one evidence. The other bit of evidence was that Laci's hair was found on the boat, and that was literally one of only basically the very few pieces of forensic evidence that they had was there a bit of hair on the boat. It was claimed that while alive, Laci had never seen Scott's boat and suggested the reason her hair was on the boat is because he'd had her body on it after killing her. So
okay, but I could, pretending I'm a lawyer, I could say that he could have had her hair on him.
Yeah.
Because my husband's forever got my hair.
Yeah, I totally agree.
On him, so I don't know if he was guilty or not, but that's kind of what I would be like. But I wouldn't say that was that good evidence.
I appreciate if maybe she has never been on his boat or never seen his boat, never been on it. Fair enough, but as you said, you could easily
hair gets transferred everywhere.
Oh, yeah, I mean I'm forever finding hair everywhere, and I'm like, fuck's sake, whose hair's that? But so that was the only sort of actual forensic evidence that they had was this piece of hair. They also found planter pots at the marina. Apparently those matched those in a storage unit in Scott's name. So divers had found them in the marina, believing that Scott had used them to weigh Laci down.
Oh, right. I was wondering where that was going. I was thinking
planter pots? Because when I first read it, I was like, what the hell are planter pots? But apparently he had some in a storage unit that matched the same ones that they found in the marina.
Okay. That sounds a bit more dodgy then.
Yeah. And then obviously the other bit of evidence was Scott's affair with this Amber Frey.
Mm-hmm.
Because she actually gave evidence at the trial against him. And she'd said, this is how bad she'd said that Scott had told her that his wife had died. But this was when Laci was still alive. So he told her that
he told her that his wife had died.
And that he was a widower.
Oh my God!
And it was about to be his first Christmas without, and the whole.
That's disgusting.
But this was when apparently Laci was still alive. So this was before she disappeared.
Even if, assuming he killed her. Even if he was planning on killing her or whatever, that's a disgusting thing to say about your wife if you're having an affair. Like,
especially when she's pregnant with your bloody son.
Yeah, to say that your wife was dead is disgusting. I mean, it's bad enough saying that you're single and all the rest of it, but to say that she's dead, no.
I know, and like I say, this was before she went missing, so she was actually still definitely alive at that point. So basically, on that evidence, Scott was found guilty of 2 counts of murder. He was found guilty of first-degree murder for killing Laci and second-degree murder for killing her unborn son, Connor. He was sentenced to death by lethal injection and was ordered to pay $10,000 towards the cost of Laci's funeral. Apparently, he'd also taken out a life insurance policy on Laci at some point, and that was actually awarded to her mother.
Right.
He was not allowed to receive or benefit from
fair enough.
Which is fair enough.
Well, if you're getting convicted, then
so his motive was apparently stated as his affair with Amber Frey, financial problems and impending fatherhood, summarising that he killed Laci due to increasing debt and a desire to be single again. Why not fucking get divorced? Exactly my point.
Well, yeah, I mean, and when there's a child involved, I mean, as shitty as it sounds, you don't have to be part of that child's life.
Exactly.
If you're worried about being a father,
yeah,
I know that sounds shitty, but as we said, murder is never the answer.
No, I know, and I mean to this day, Scott he does still maintain he's innocent.
Right.
He, as I've read about here, he said despite the court ruling and public perception, Scott maintains that he's innocent. He spoke out from his prison cell during a recorded phone call, and he opened up about the shock and disbelief he experienced after hearing the guilty verdict. When they told me, I just had a terrible physical reaction, Scott said. I mean, it was really emotional. It was a really emotional physical reaction. I couldn't feel my feet on the floor, and I couldn't feel the chair I was sitting in. My vision was even a little blurry, and I just had this weird sensation that I was falling forward and down, and there was going to be no end to this falling forward and down, like there was no floor to land on. I was staggered by it. I had no idea it was coming, he continued. So he obviously believed he was going to be found innocent of this, but no, he's found guilty. Obviously, he has, done appeals after appeal after appeal, and it's taken a long time for like all these appeals to kind of get somewhere. So as I said, he's maintained his innocence. But finally, last year, his death sentence was actually overturned.
All right.
But his conviction of killing his wife was upheld. It was also reported that the judge had dismissed 2 jurors because they had opposed the death penalty. So when he originally got convicted of the death penalty, there was apparently 2 jurors that were dismissed from by the judge because they were opposed to the death penalty. So it's almost saying like they were basically wanting him to get the death penalty, and because these 2 jurors were opposing it, they were dismissed from the jury. So obviously that was like the defence were saying, well, that's a bit dodgy, isn't it?
Yeah, that I was just thinking that doesn't sound right.
Exactly. I was also because I think not that this does not answer my death, because how we were saying in the previous episode about the whole death penalty thing, but it was quite interesting to find out that in March 2019, the California governor Gavin Newsom, he issued a moratorium for all 737 prisoners on death row in California, including Peterson. The order postpones all executions for the duration of Newsom's tenure as governor. California had not actually executed a prisoner since 2006 due to legal challenges to the state's execution protocol. So Newsom's order spares the approximately 25 prisoners on death row who had exhausted their legal appeals and could have had their executions moved forward once the legal challenge was resolved. But Scott Peterson's family said that they were in favour of Newsom's action, but noted that this case was likely to be unaffected by it because the family doesn't believe that he's exhausted all his legal challenges. And that would be by January 2027, when Newsom would be leaving office if he was re-elected in 2022. So assuming he's re-elected next year, there'll still be the people on death row still won't get executed, which I was like, okay. But hey. But interestingly, so as I said to you before, having his death penalty overturned, 2 months after his death penalty was overturned, prosecutors have said they're now going to ask for the death penalty again, because this is going to a new trial. He's actually thinking he's going to get a new trial on the whole thing. So they're actually going to re-ask for the death penalty. So even though he's had it overturned, he's still been convicted of the murders, but he wasn't going to get the death penalty. But now they're going to re-ask for the death penalty again. So of course, I think Scott himself, he is happy that his case is getting looked at again because he has maintained his innocence through the whole thing. And to be honest, I mean, the evidence against him is quite... There's not a lot. It's all a circumstantial sort of evidence. There's no real hard facts in this case, I don't think.
Imagine if he's innocent.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. I wouldn't say I'm 100% sure.
I don't think he should be getting the death penalty.
No. So I agree that maybe that was the case, that it was overturned. But I don't know. I just don't... I'm not sure on that one, to be honest. I mean...
What you've told me, that it doesn't make me think that he's 100% guilty, but it doesn't make me think that he's 100% innocent either. Yeah. Like, obviously there is sort of things that are like, that's weird.
Well, because, like, I mean, the whole thing with the jurors thing, I mean, it's obviously like they were convinced he was guilty. The judge was obviously convinced he was guilty. And like I say, because these 2 jurors, he obviously thought they were going to cause him a problem, and think that they obviously wanted him to get the death penalty because they were that certain on it. But I don't know. I really don't know. But as a last sort of thing, the death of Laci and Connor Peterson led to the passage of the Unborn Victims of Violence Act, which is also known as Laci and Connor's Law. So on the 1st of April 2004, Sharon, Laci's mum, and her husband Ron they were in attendance at the White House when President George W. Bush signed the bill into law. So the Act provides that under federal law, any person who causes death or injury to an unborn child while in the commission of a crime upon a pregnant woman will be charged with a separate offence. So basically, if they kill somebody that's pregnant, they'll also be charged for killing that unborn child as well.
Good.
Which...
I agree with that.
I agree with that as well. But, sadly, it's meant...
Who does that, though? Like, it's bad enough murdering anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, don't do it. But, like, to actually murder somebody who's pregnant is absolutely...
Even, like, your own wife, potentially. I mean, if
it
is him, potentially his own wife and his own unborn child, I mean, it's bad enough if a stranger was to do it, but to do it to your own...
Yeah, I know.
I remember actually reading it, I forgot to say it in there, but there was one of... I can't remember who it was, but somebody said that they thought that she'd actually been killed by, like, a cult. Like an actual cult. Yeah, rather than, it wasn't him, it was actually like it was somebody quite like in an office somewhere. I can't remember who it was. I don't know why I didn't write it down, but they had believed that she'd actually been killed by an actual, like, kidnapped and stuff by a cult and killed by a cult and not him. So I don't know. I mean, as I said, I mean, this, it's quite a common case, so I'm sure there's a lot of opinions about whether he's guilty or not.
See, what gets me about being kidnapped by a cult is... Well, there's no evidence to suggest that.
No.
But I'm just thinking, because she was 8.5 months pregnant, if she was out of the house, surely she couldn't have been far away from her house.
Well, that's it. I mean...
I don't know.
As I said, I mean, I know, pregnant women, not saying that they're not capable of carrying on and, say, working up till the 9 months stuff, they might be able to, but... in my experience, I was nowhere near fit for going that far away.
And she didn't have her keys or anything with her,
so... Exactly. And I didn't want to go anywhere on my own in case I went into labour or things like that. So, but I don't know. I mean, as I said, everybody's different. But I'm not convinced 100% that he's done it. I mean, the evidence to me doesn't really. There is some evidence there, but there's other explanations potentially that could have been for them. So I'm not sure. And I mean, I'll be interested to follow this trial.
To see what happens.
To see what happens. To see if he is actually, gonna. Well, I don't know if he would get acquitted or if he does again get the death penalty. Let's say, because I don't know. I mean, I said I'll definitely follow it and maybe update it at a later date once there's something to update with.
Yeah. Oh well.
So that's my lot episode for the day.
Thanks for that. So thanks for listening, everybody. If you would like to follow us on social media, we are at Instagram and Twitter
at crime_divers_pod.
Right. We're on Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube.
And they're all Crime Divers.
all Crime Divers podcasts in different variations, though. Mm-hmm. So it'll be either one word, like all of it one word, or it'll be Crime Divers. Yeah, you just search Crime Divers. Exactly. Because we've got to the stage where we're that lazy that we can't be bothered saying it out every time. And if you'd like to email us, we are...
crime_divers_pod@outlook.com.
Yeah, and if you'd like to join our Patreon, we are patreon.com/crime-divers.
And we have various levels of...
Yeah, you can join from as little as £1 a month.
Exactly. And obviously, if you do like us and you do want to continue listeing to us and you want to know when get our episodes as soon as they come out, don't forget to subscribe, rate, review. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.